Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. I am Osayuame Sale, and today we have a very full house. Hi Dee, hi Uti, hi Nama Efanga. Hi. Who is
Hello,
Nama?
Uti. Hello, Diola. Hello,
Hello.
Bua.
How are you,
Hello.
Nama?
Lovely faces today.
Yes, so how are
You
you?
look gorge.
Yeah.
By the way.
As always.
As always.
Yeah.
That's the word. As always.
Nama, they say you look gorgeous always.
Oh, Uti, thank you so much. Adiola, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
We try not to look like what we are going through, even though it can't be believed, but that is what it is.
That's good. How are you, ladies?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so what happened with the 3 days of no light? Finally, they brought the light. I was at my sister's house last night, and she was telling me how things in her fridge had gone bad. But thankfully, they brought back Magodo light yesterday, but they just brought back our light today. And not be smarting. Uti, how about you? Funny enough, my house, the power has been stable. We don't even know whether grid or no grid, but it's our money, we pay for it.
But that's
say
independent.
that- All I know is that money is running. And that money gives you a headache.
Headache, oh.
But it is well.
I just saw a video now. The lady put like bundles of money on her forehead. She said, this is the only way to take away the stress, the depression, and anxiety. So anybody that wants to solve her problem of stress, depression, and anxiety, just...
You know that that sticker on WhatsApp that just says send money. That's my position right now. Anybody say like what's her name? Kiki said, don't ask me how I am. Just say well done, well done. And after that, just look at me. Send money.
Okay, so we have an interesting conversation today, and we have a guest with us. Sanzi and I started Igbazbos last week, so we decided to bring in an expert to talk about the issues around child safety, right? Especially around our educational institutions. And here's what we found as today's quote. It says, every child is a story yet to be told. Let us ensure their stories are filled with safety, love, and opportunities. This is from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Now, the issue of child safeguarding and protection within higher institutions has become a focal point of concern and discussions. Now, recent incidents have highlighted significant gaps in the safety measures and support systems meant to protect young students in universities. So tonight we will delve into the complexities of this topic, examining the current state of child protection in higher institutions, identifying areas needing urgent reform, and advocating for robust policies that prioritize the safety and well-being of all students. And we could not have any other person than Taiwo Akilami. He'll be joining us. He's a family attorney and child safeguarding and protection innovator. But we'll do all of that. First, let's quickly run off on a break. When we come back from that break, we want to see what we found in today's news. All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, World Environment Day, celebrated globally on the 5th of June, resonates strongly with Nigeria, a country grappling with environmental challenges such as deforestation, pollution, climate change impacts. In Nigeria, issues like oil spills in the Niger Delta, deforestation in the southern rainforest, and desertification in the north are urgent concerns. Now, these environmental issues not only endanger the country's biodiversity, but also affects the livelihoods of millions of Nigerians, especially those dependent on agriculture and natural resources. World Environment Day serves as a call to action for Nigeria to prioritize sustainable development practices, invest in renewable energy, enact and enforce environmental regulations, and promote eco-friendly initiatives to preserve its natural heritage for future generations. So, hey, that's a great day, because this heat wave we've been feeling and so many things that have been happening that were not happening before in the time past, we have to really pay attention to our environment. We have to be intentional about protecting it. Uti, why are you smiling?
Because that's the least of our problems.
No, it's not the least of our problem. It's not.
Please.
See. If the environment was good and they decided to shut down the grid, the heat would have not been this much.
No, but again, I mean, you now have to look at how they're building practices and all that. But that's a story for another day.
Because we don't have time, I mean. Let's move on. Uti, you want to say something?
She said it all. Yeah.
Let me come to you, Norma. Norma, what did you find for us in the news today?
Okay, so I found something very interesting. I mean, I had to just bring it up because I had never heard about it before. It's about a case of a woman who suffered something called auto brewery syndrome.
For my
And
Wimbo.
this is a disease that makes people to act like they're under the influence of drugs or beer, not beer, but under
Alcohol.
the influence of alcohol in general, and they are not. So apparently, this syndrome is something that what even triggered my interest was the fact that the first known case was in 1946, which was in Africa, about a 5-year-old boy whose stomach sort of ruptured, and they didn't know the reason why, but research over time has shown that there are, organisms within the stomach walls that can begin to ferment and create scenarios within the system that causes one to begin to act as if they were under the influence. And this can make them to either pass out or maybe if they're arrested or, they're stopped on the road and they're held for drunk driving and things like that. So it's funny how these people can actually still function without knowing that they have this syndrome at work in their system. And this can happen to anyone. So it just brought the attention to the fact that we need to pay attention to our health and know what is wrong with us. Because sometimes you feel dizzy or you feel like you're under the influence and you don't even know that you have this.
But Norma, I saw something in this
brewery syndrome.
I saw something in your story that says the gut is producing alcohol. So me, I was asking, is it a drinkable alcohol? Because
it's not. Funny enough, it's not drinkable. It's not. But it's like
I'm just
no, but it's something.
Norma, we'll ask you this question, and you answer. I don't like that you're answering well. Just leave the mischief crew on my left and just ignore them. Don't mind them.
But it's interesting to know. It's interesting to know. All right, Uti, what did you find for us?
Well, my headline says, IOC is not selling crude oil to Dangote refinery. So this is the chairman of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote himself, saying that the international oil companies in Nigeria are not ready to sell crude to the 650,000 barrel capacity oil refinery. He said he mentioned this in an interview to the CNN and said that the IOCs, which is the international oil companies, would rather sell outside of the country. So they'd rather export crude than sell to him. And whilst the NNPC is doing its best, they're struggling to give him the necessary and the needed crude, which is the raw material, of course, for him to produce the refined product. He interestingly went on to say that 21 million barrels of crude is what the refinery would need on a monthly basis, and that 21 million barrels equates to 21 ships. So each ship is able to take 1 million barrels. So that would reduce that export capacity by 21 ships on a monthly basis. But clearly, it's more profitable for them to export the product than for them to sell it to him. I like very much when you get to the end of the story where he says that if he knew, they didn't know what they were getting into, but if they did, they would have run away and they would not have built a refinery. I wish I could be sad for him.
What?
But all I want to say is, wah, wah, wah. Guy, you went into business. They say you are the richest man in Africa. Everybody is jaded towards you in one way or the other, all the opportunities, all the, basically. But I just found it funny that he says if he knew what he knew. I'm not surprised to hear that they're struggling to get crude, to be honest. I think that when you're going to do business, there's feasibility studies, looking at your business plan.
Stakeholder consultation as well.
So from a policy perspective, perhaps this is where the government now, most of the IOCs, they are reducing their footprint in Nigeria anyway. We heard about, I think it was Mobil last week.
Yeah,
who
Shell
have
as well.
reduced they're not
Their
renewing
production,
their
yeah.
rent in the huge office they have in VI. They moved to a smaller one in Ikoyi. So we can see that they're reducing their footprint. So perhaps it's time for the government to step in and look at quotas in which they will allow for exports. But the truth is, these companies have come in, they've sunken their money. So can you really tell them what to do with their products? So something for the government to look at.
Quickly, Dee.
Interesting. Okay, so my own headline is 25 students, 25 Ajayi Crowther Varsity undergraduates arraigned for beating fellow students to death. And this story had been, it's been out there since about May, when we heard that the student was beaten for allegedly stealing a phone, but today the students were arraigned in, in the courts, and they will be there until about July, until, their sentence, they commute their sentence rather. And it's just funny. I mean, it's crazy. Because, I was reading this thing and I saw that, I saw a place where they said that he was beaten from about 10 p.m. on Friday.
To 6 a.m.
6 a.m. on Saturday
We
morning.
will talk about it because that's the conversation that is coming, much later with Taiwa Kilami.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention this story yesterday. It's like people don't want me to mention it today. Is this Heritage Bank matter? I'm thinking we should bring a bank expert because I don't understand why. I know I'm not a banker. Thank God we have financial people here. CBN had said that depositors' funds were safe, right? So how are we hearing that people that the highest pay they would get, that NDIC would give them, is 5 million? Somebody, I saw a post that Rufai Oseni had posted on X saying that he said he had 170 million. Do you understand? Right now, he doesn't even know what to do. He's an honest businessman, blah, blah, blah. I don't understand. I thought the goal when CBN did that law, that reform, that they said, okay, every bank must deposit a certain amount of money just to make sure that they are safeguarding depositors' funds. Uti, help me. I don't understand.
So I saw that story as well. I mean, what for me, I always say is read the fine print. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't. I don't know. I mean, when I also saw the 5 million, again, this benchmark for the NDIC is not a new one. And you can't discount the impact of inflation. At the time when it was set up, the 5 million then is not 5 million today.
Yeah.
So there's a huge difference. I mean, in the UK, you are told that your funds are protected, I think, up to the tune of 80, I think it's about £80,000, right? So there is a limit. It's not a free-flowing bucket. If not, I mean, it means that all the money is sitting in NDIC. That's not how it works. It's just like insurance as well. So the limit does seem, it is low for today's value of money, but it also means that, for me, when things like this happen, it causes us to revisit what we know of, again, it's about asking questions. A lot of the time, we're going to talk about schools today. People do things without reading the fine print, without asking questions, without being educated enough. It's sad that this has happened. I mean, when the story broke, to have, from what I've seen, reportedly about 97% in non-performing loans. Like, how do you get to that point, before, I mean, it's just unconscionable.
Yeah, I mean.
But we'll still look for somebody within to probably explain it because it's something I need to understand. So that if let's say now we'll get like five, Uti go get like 5 banks. Or 10 banks, we'll put 5 million. So that in case anything happens, at least you are sure of your money.
So I think that it's important. And this is where, again, I say it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was asking a question today to some of my mentees. I said, how many of you know how to read an annual financial statement? The truth of this is it didn't happen overnight. If you go on every bank's website, the annual financial statements is there year on year. All of these things are reported. But 9 out of 10 Nigerians, 9.95 of Nigerians
I've never read it.
are not interested. Do you get what I mean?
We will start to wake up now. Now that we've seen that.
I mean, when it happened with all the other banks, we've had it. This is not the first
Society
time.
generally,
but-
of course.
Yes.
I mean, it's happening.
All right, so let's take a break. We have to bring in Taiwa Kilami to discuss child safety, especially within our higher institutions. Just like a follow-up from where we had talked about last week. Stay with us. Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges.
With the growing youth population and very little engagement.
That is a ticking time bomb.
We're blessed people with a diverse culture who have a lot to say.
And yes, we are talking.
It is important we drive conversations that informs, inspires, and influences thoughts and actions.
If we say there is beauty in diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture.
We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation.
As we are the hope for the future,
Yesterday's conversation shaped today.
What are you saying to shape your tomorrow?
We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you. All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, the tragic death of the 17-year-old boy, Joshua Daniel Ejigbo, at a prominent Nigerian university has ignited a critical conversation about the urgent need to enhance child safeguarding and protection systems within higher institutions, right? As we revisit this incident tonight, we aim to shed light on the existing gaps in students' safety and explore actionable solutions to prevent such tragedies in the future. Now, joining us to shed more light on this topic is our guest, Taiwo Akilami. He's a former social development and family attorney and child safeguarding and protection innovator. Taiwo is not a stranger to the house. He's always available to have, a conversation with us on this. And I'm sure he was wondering, why did we not reach out immediately it happened? But we're waiting for this time so that we could have the conversation. But Taiwo Akilami, thank you again for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you guys again.
Taiwo, I am tired
of this. One of
these
days I'll be with you in flesh and blood.
We are looking forward to it, honestly. We're looking forward. But, I mean, it's just it's always very saddening, right, to always have this same conversation over and over again. Okay, so when you heard about the Ajayi Crowther student, Daniel Joshua, what was your first, reaction when you heard that story about being beaten for hours, until he met his demise?
Well, I feel that there is a lack of commitment on the side of those who work with our young people to ensure their protection. Now, this was not something that happened, in a dash. It went on, according to the reports that we got, for a long time within the university system. 25 people, both those who are offenders in the first, who have been charged as offenders in the first degree, and those who are accomplices, perpetrated that heinous behavior against another student, and no help came for the student. I mean, it's appalling. Even if someone is living on a street and somebody is hearing someone crying for help and yelling, I believe that even neighbors who do not have the responsibility to protect that individual want to show up to find out what is going on. Many cases of domestic violence has been reported by neighbors who just heard noise.
Thank you.
And they trace it and they went ahead and report the matter. Not to talk of something happening within an enclosed environment of a university. It shows again the kind of care and the kind of protection, safety that is available to young people. In the case of this Ajayi Crowther, this young man is 22 years old. He's a youth, according to United Nations. United Nations says youth is between age 14 or 15 and 24. So why would we keep such people in school and there's no commitment to look after them, to watch after them, to ensure that they're okay?
Yeah. The other comment, please.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very interesting to to hear you say this. And I would like to ask that, I mean, in your practice and in your experience, can you say that you have ever heard of a case where any Nigerian university actually has a standardized, process for reporting, when issues like this, when issues like this happen? Are there protocols for reporting and responding? So let's assume, I mean, you raised the concern about, I mean, we've had domestic issues happen, being reported because someone heard, something. But in this kind of closed environment, nobody was able to say anything. Would you say that this is as a result of the fact that maybe people are scared or they don't even know who to go to report this kind of, abuse?
So this, the challenge again is that we have to understand that Nigeria is a place where anything goes, anything can happen. So since this matter, this news broke now, the focus has been on those young people who allegedly perpetrated this act. That's where the focus has been. Nobody has taken the school to task. You are a university. You have a responsibility towards the safety of the young people under you, whether they are children or older. The truth is that you brought all of them together under one umbrella to come and study. And that this could happen under you, the school has not been taken to task to tell us what is the protocol you have in place for the safety of everyone within the school system. What do you have in place for reporting? Show us your policy for reporting bullying. Because we all went to the university and we knew that in the university, bullying was not limited to secondary school. As a matter of fact, the higher you go in education, the higher the sophistication of the bullying. Not to talk of when people now join, belong to one court or the other, and they are fighting at the level of court activities. But when you are now talking about day-to-day bullying, it happens within the school system. It happens in the university. So the university has not been able to tell us now, since this matter started, that, okay, this is the measures we have in place. These are the kind of trainings we have organized for our young people on the issue of bullying. These are the steps we have taken to ensure that this does not happen on our soil. The university has not said that. All that the university has done, because I followed the story, is to come out and say that, well, it happened, to say that they have handed over those young people to the police, and that is it. It ought not to be so. The school has to be accountable as to what role did they play. That thing happened under their watch.
Absolutely.
Are they going to be left to continue business as usual and only telling us that we have handed over the young people to the police? Who created the enabling environment
for that to even happen in the first place? Absolutely. Uti, please come in.
Hi, Taiwo. Great to see you.
Good to see you, Uti. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm sorry, but I'm so jaded by this conversation because I like the fact that you went as far back as talking about cultism and its effects, right? When it comes to higher institutions, I think safety has never been a consideration. From even our government and federal and state universities, we've had these issues of students being killed. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I was so traumatized by my older siblings' experience that I didn't even want to write JAM, right? The existence today of private universities was also partially because parents wanted safer environments, right, for their children. Now, we hear there is Ajayi Crowther, which again is reputable by all standards, having this happen. And then you have the Veritas University, the young man who has also passed away under questionable circumstances. When you say that the schools should be held accountable, I don't, and I have never seen the framework that says we can't even hold the primary and secondary schools where the children are real children. Minors, right? Then now we're coming to secondary school, we're coming to higher institutions and tertiary institutions. So every indication is that as Uti is sitting here, her tired is tired in this conversation because clearly nothing is being done, right? So for me, the perspective and the question is, there's the responsibility of the school, there's the responsibility of the students, see something, do something, say something. There's the responsibility of the parents in asking the right questions. You've now taken your child away from, I don't want them in the government universities, and brought them to a private university. What does the university have in place, right? What are the policies? What are the standards, right? Because it's one thing for me to go and open a university and say, bring your children. But what standards should be in place? So that's the question. What standards should be in place, and what questions should parents be asking before they put their hands in their pockets and give their hard-earned money? Because having raised a child to the age of 17, 18, 21, and then for the child to die like a chicken, I'm sorry to say, it's just painful. I can't even, the conversation for me, like I said, I'm just jaded because I'm tired.
So can I come in? So
Sure.
let me say this. There are two ways to look at these issues. The young man that died in Ajayi Crowther is 22 years old. So we can be talking generally about duty of care of the school to make sure that there's safety for everyone around the school. But let's go to Abuja, Veritas University, where a 17-year-old child was killed. He's a child. In 2019, I was opportune to be invited by UNICEF. I was consulting for UNICEF on national policy for the protection of children within the school system. That was being spearheaded by the Ministry of Education, Federal Ministry of Education. In that meeting, we had Federal Ministry of Information. We had people from National Orientation Agency. We had parents represented, parents from public schools and private schools. One of the officers in that meeting had a child in a private school. And so as the conversation was going on, I came up with this idea to say, look, you guys are talking about secondary schools here, primary schools and secondary school and nursery school, and you are creating a national policy. I asked the question, are you aware that at 16 you can write JAMB? If at 16, that's the law, you can write JAMB at 16, which means at 16 or 17 you can get into university. Are you aware that some young people don't even write JAMB to get into university? They do pre-degree courses. And so that makes it possible for children like 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old to be in the university. I said, the fact that they are in the university, does that change the fact that they are children and they don't need protection? Do they become an adult by virtue of the fact that they get into the university? So I proposed that the policy we are working on, which is national policy on the protection of children around Nigeria, must incorporate children in higher institutions. And therefore, people within the higher institution system must be invited for this meeting, and they must be made to implement a child safeguarding and protection system within their institutions because they are raising children. And it is an anomaly, I must say, for you to find children in the university. Now, there's a policy of the federal government now saying that they want to amend the age that children will get into universities. Now, it happened in developed countries, but it is rare for you to find children. Now, but in Nigeria, because of this drive of parents who don't want their children to do the 6th year in secondary school, parents who say their children are geniuses and they want to rush them through the educational system. When I was in the Lagos State University, a 12-year-old child was in school with us, who later went south. He was not only in school, he was also in the boys' hostel, Sheraton Hostel. He became a court boy, of course, and he was macheted at age 16 in 400 level, though he did not die. So I gave all of those examples, and a woman who is a worker in Ministry of Education, whose child is in a private university, said, honestly, what you are saying is very correct. These are things that have been in my mind because I have my son in one of the private universities. So now, there was no controversy in that meeting. Everybody agreed, and that policy was amended to include this provision that I suggested. But the question today is that who is implementing it?
Who is implementing
Is
it,
the,
and
is
who
the
is
federal
even
government implementing it?
absolutely? And you know, it is. I think it's the larger problem that we've always had: no implementation, no monitoring. Right? That is what is actually even impacting some of these things. But you know what? Taiwo Akilami, we'll take a break. When we come back from that break, I want to also hear. I think Norma has some questions as well. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges.
With the growing youth population and very little engagement.
That is a ticking time bomb.
We're blessed people with a diverse culture who have a lot to say.
And yes, we are talking.
It is important we drive conversations that informs, inspires, and influences thoughts and actions.
If we say there is beauty in diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture.
We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation.
As we are the hope for the future.
Yesterday's conversation shaped today.
What are you saying to shape your tomorrow?
We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, if you just tuned in, we're having a conversation with Taiwo Akilami. We're revisiting child safety policies within the campuses, right, our universities. Now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join this conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. You can also call. The number to call is 07025007749. That's the number to call. Norma, let me come to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Taiwo, for joining us today. I mean, you literally took that question right out of my mouth, because while I was listening to you, the policies and the accountability side of things, that was where my thoughts were going to. Because it's one thing for you to have standards for universities or secondary schools to abide by, it's another for there to be accountability. And then that's where the government comes in. So what are the gaps in terms of accountability? Why have we, this is not news, unfortunately. It's not something that we're new to. We have been having these conversations, like you rightly said. So what is why is there still this setback? And what can we do to bridge this gap? Because it's important. We have lost several children. We've lost lives, young people that could have turned around situations in the country, but for the demise that they have experienced. Now, my second question would be that, are there any innovative ways or standards that we can also imbibe or add to our policies that can help with the bridging of this gap? Because it's important that we are not working in isolation. If there are things that are creative that can help in this situation, then could you let us know?
Okay, so let's analyze the gap by looking at the Veritas University's case. A child was said to have died, said to have fainted or was slumped and rushed to the hospital. The parents said they were informed later. The parents said that they requested for an autopsy. The school was not keen. The father and the parents, let me say the parents, paid for the autopsy, and they found bruises on his neck, bruises on his body. They alleged that that child did not slump and died. From what autopsy found, that child was beaten. That child was murdered. That child was attacked. Those are the allegations that the parents are making. Now, this is the question. what is the protocol of informing parents if their child slumps or there's a medical emergency? What is the process? The school has, Veritas University has not been able to explain that. Secondly, apart from blind denial, the university has not been able to match the parents fact for fact, analysis for analysis, disputing the medical position that the parents have, which is informed by the autopsy. Now, the way it works is that when situations like this happen, the school must inform the parents immediately. Not only informing the parents immediately, the school must be interested in an autopsy to find the cause of death, so that to see whether there is negligence on their part or not. The next question, does Veritas University have in place a child safeguarding and protection policy or a child safeguarding and protection system codified into a policy, broken down into processes on which everybody is trained, because they are dealing with children, 17-year-old, 16-year-old, 15 years old are in that school? Are parents also aware that it is a demand that they can make? When you look at Section 1 and 2 of the Child Rights Act, it makes it put on people who look after children, particularly at an institutional level, a duty of care, provide care in accordance with the provisions of the law and existing policies. The unfortunate thing is that parents are not aware, schools are not aware, schools who are aware are in this habit of embracing impunity. Nothing is going to happen. Noise is going to come, noise is going to go, and we are going to be fine.
Okay, so Taiwo,
nothing is going to change.
Okay, let me come back. Sorry, because I want us to get in as much information as possible. Sanzi and I on this set had a very big fight, right? And I am of the opinion that if we parents, we that were bringing out our money and we're paying these school fees, begin to demand some of these policies and all of those things, maybe things will change. Because if we leave the matter for schools alone to say, let them set up the structures, let them set up things that will protect our children, we're already clearly seeing that they are not even interested in all of those things, right? So how can we change this game, right? What role can a parent play in ensuring that this is my child that I'm handing over to you in this school, right? If the government has refused to do the checks and balances, if the schools have refused to put in those measures in place, how can the parents change the game?
Well, I think the salvation of our children in schools, whether primary school, secondary school, higher institution, is in our hands. So this is the analysis for me. The reason why we have secondary schools, why we have private schools, is because of the failure of the public schools.
Of course.
There's no nation on earth where the responsibility of educating children is solely on the shoulder of the private sector. The private sector is supposed to close the gap, bridge the gap between what the public sector is able to make available. In countries like Finland, there's no private investment in education, right? The same thing Kagame is trying to achieve in his country. So the reason why we have plethora of private schools, private universities, private primary school, private secondary school, I must commend the private sector for taking on the responsibility where government has failed. Now, government has two responsibilities when it comes to education. Responsibility number one, establish schools for the people who cannot afford to be in the private school. That is a law in Nigeria. The UBE Act says that the first 9 years of education in Nigeria must be free. As a matter of fact, chapter 2 of the Constitution says every child in Nigeria has right to education from cradle to university. That's chapter 2 of the Constitution. Now, that is not happening. So government has failed woefully in living up to that responsibility of providing education. So the second responsibility of government is this: regulating education. a government that cannot fund schools, a government whose schools are broken down and they cannot house children, you don't expect them to do the responsibility of regulating schools. That is why, because they cannot fund, that's why we are taking our children to private school. So having now taken our children to private school, we now turn to the same government that failed in its responsibilities to say, come and regulate school. So we are crying at government, come and regulate school. If they could regulate school, they would have run their own schools. Their own schools would have been doing well. There won't be plethora of private schools, private universities. So that now means that we are asking government to do what they cannot do after we have now taken responsibility for the education of our children. Because we are running as local government chairmen. We are responsible for education. We are responsible for security. We are responsible for shelter.
Healthcare.
We are responsible for health. Those who don't have the resources, for all of those, their children are left in the cold. So it is kind of funny when we now leave the regulation of the education and the safety of our children to the same government that could not run their own schools. So it therefore means that it is the responsibility of parents to stay on the neck of schools and demand for policies and demand for what should be. What is your child safeguarding and protection policy in this school? When last did you renew it? Do you even have one? When last did you train? And I'll tell you a very pathetic story if I have time. My client relocated from the United Kingdom and brought his two children to Lagos. He asked around, what school can I put my child? And they said, there's one beautiful school. Of course, the school is beautiful. It's a 6-figure paying school located in Eyebrow area of Lagos. And this woman took her two children to this Eyebrow school. Now, a few months after, this woman was called to say that the child was jerking. And the woman said, what do you mean my son is jerking? One of the oldest son, the eldest son. So the woman said, let me come to school and see what was happening to my child. The woman came to school and saw the child. And the woman said, this is not jerking, this is post-traumatic disorder. My child is going through traumatic disorder and is going through post-traumatic disorder. So something happened. So the woman withdrew her child during the exam and flew the child to the United Kingdom. It was when the child was being seen in the United Kingdom that the child, it was discovered that that child was being sodomized by 2 seniors in this school. And so we were briefed. The woman rushed back to Nigeria, left the son in the United Kingdom, and briefed us to represent them. So we wrote to the school that they should come to us within 7 days to explain this allegation. 7 days passed, this school never came back to us. We showed up in this, we called the school, they fixed a meeting, we attended the meeting. In that meeting, do you know the school did not inform the parents of the children who were alleged to have sodomized our client? They didn't inform them. When we got to the meeting, we were expecting to see the parents of those children because their names were specifically mentioned. The school said, we didn't want to bother the parents. I asked them, you don't want to bother the parents? Have you bothered the children? Have you asked the children if they did this? Yes, we have asked them. They said they didn't do it. I said, if you send your child to school and is accused of something as heinous as sodomy, are you going to be happy that your child was spoken to and you were not spoken to? Are you aware that your contract with these children is with their parents and the children are just beneficiaries? So I said we couldn't have the meeting. So we didn't have the meeting. So we fixed the meeting for another day. The parents of those children were invited at our instance. There's no policy on ground. So I asked them in the meeting so that the meeting would not go too long. I said, our child has alleged that he has been sodomized. Do you have in place a child safeguarding and protection policy? They don't have. Do you have an anti-bullying policy? They don't have. When last did you take these children through sexuality education? They have not. When last did you discuss with these children bullying, sodomy, and all of this? They've not. I said, so I don't think this meeting should be long. Our case is no more that this happened to our child here. Our case now is that you do not have machinery in place to prevent it from happening. And this is a highbrow school. And so our client decided that we're going to take it further. We're going to sue this school. And the question, therefore, is that if I mention the name of the school, you know it. If I mention the name of the school, there's nobody here who does not know the school. But that is a highbrow school, decorated crime scene. A highbrow school, a decorated crime scene, collecting 6 figures to put children through trauma. So the truth of the matter is that it is interesting to note that the parents of the children that were accused of sodomy were more interested in defending their children and defending the school than seeing what the point we're making. So the fact remains, I agree with honestly, I agree with you, that the responsibility of ensuring the protection of our children within the school system is in the hand of the parents. If the parents fail, nobody is coming for our children, the government is not coming for our children. You can see what is going on. What is the position of the Federal Ministry of Education and the institution responsible for universities in Nigeria? In the case of Ajayi Crowther University, have they issued a statement? Have they issued a statement in respect of Veritas? They've not. They are not interested. So when we keep putting our faith in the hands of people that have shown through their ways, their character, that are not interested in governance, but in their own pockets, in things that work for them. Why do we want to pretend?
Wow. Unfortunately, we have very little time. Any more questions quickly? I am just lost because I keep on saying that you are asking for something that's impossible, because as it is, right? Like Taro rightly said, normally, ideally, in better climes, I think even in Kenya, the private schools, they were not getting customers. They were now shutting down because the government schools are doing well. Do you understand? So how do we? It's just sad.
The sad part of this thing for me really is how we don't realize the impact of the joke that we have made of education. So I get Sanzi's point in the argument that she was making, because even when you put the responsibility on the parent, it takes critical mass. One parent coming to the school to ask question, yes, we're coming. It takes critical mass for you to be able to achieve that change.
That's what I was trying to say. That parents need to wake up.
No, but you see, that's where I'm coming from. Sanzi's point was valid. The education, the lack of education is with the parents and is with the system. So when you have an uneducated parent,
how would they know what to ask for?
Thank you. So when you are talking about it, we are not looking at the impact, the snowball effect, the lack of a prioritization of the education sector is having on us as Nigerians. We are living it. We've done this migration. In our generation, if you are in your late 30s, early 40s, you probably went to a unity school or a state school. They don't exist. You're not going to send your child to a unity school today. You won't take the risk. Now, we went to schools in other states, boarding school. You can't do that now. For safety, for quality, it's gone. So even when we say we are placing the risk we're placing the responsibility on the parents, what percentage of the parents are educated enough and enlightened enough to understand that this is something they should ask for? Is it, we're talking of 6-figure school, right? 6-figure, 7-figure school, parents didn't ask. Is it 50,000 naira school or 100,000 naira school that they will ask? And where is the volume? The volume is in the schools that are at the lower end of the pyramid. So that's why I said that this conversation, Taiwo, it's great to see you, but for once on this show, you can see that I'm quiet because I have nothing to. I don't know what to say. I'm just pained.
Taiwo, how do we move forward?
Something,
okay, quickly, Norma, go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, Uchi. I feel your pain because coming from unity schools, coming from that background, so to speak, and knowing that they're literally non-existent because of the level of destruction that we have today and the impunity with which it's done is even more scary. And the reason why private schools even came and became more significant is the fact that the failure of the unity schools and then the private schools coming in now and having these levels of negligence, and even the children are no longer safe in private schools, is even more alarming than ever. So I wanted to ask, going back to the parents and Taiwo, what are the issues are there bodies, like initiatives that are ongoing? Because a lot of this is on ignorance, maybe on the part of parents. They don't know what to ask for, or they don't know what to do or what to demand for with regards safety for their children. So are there initiatives that are ongoing in Nigeria that people need to pay attention to? Parents either sign up to, this is where you get information, this is where you get educated about what you need to do with regards to safety for your children. If your children, because we're not talking about secondary schools anymore.
Yeah.
We're also neglecting the aspect of primary schools as well.
Everything.
And then now we're talking about the universities. So what initiatives do we need to pay attention to? Do we need to sign up for? Or so that we begin to create this awareness? Because it comes from what Uti said. It's a snowball effect that brought us to where we are. It will also take a snowball effect to actually begin to create this awareness and get people ready to take action.
All right, Taiwo, you have about 3 minutes to quickly answer that question, please. Go ahead.
Thank you for your question, Norma, and thank you for Uti talking about the fact that we need to be a community. There was a time in Nigeria, there was a National Association of Parents, led by Babs Fatunwa, and we had a national body that represented the voice of parents. And I think we need to reenact, that kind of spirit, that kind of body, where parents can be speaking with one voice. Parents can come together. There can be chapters in different states. In developed countries, parents come together under different umbrellas to fight for the interests of their children as a collective, knowing that at the end of the day, one person's voice may be drowned. Now, again, ultimately, all of this should be part of the national question. The building, the foundation on which the building is standing is rickety. The foundation is faulty. The foundation is Nigeria. It is my well-considered opinion that until we fix Nigeria, we may not be able to fix the schools. Because the school is just
a symptom
of the macro institution, institution or nation known as Nigeria. At our own level, we have continued to educate parents. Children's Day last year, we started what we call Children Info Bank. It's a platform as of today where we have posted over 5,000 links to information about children, and we have segmented it at different levels. We highlight these stories on a daily basis. If a place you want to go to get information about what is happening to children across the globe, is organized according to continents, according to nations. And so it's a platform where we are trying to bring parents together to understand what the issues are. There is a community information board there where we discuss this issue and we discuss the implications and what parents can begin to do. I think it's a platform that
we should check out. I think Taiwo Akilami
encourage all of us to support.
Absolutely. We will
Children Info Bank, and it's out there.
Children Info Bank, and we'll definitely, of course, we'll always bring you back to have this conversation, because it needs to be ongoing. But quickly, we have one message and we'll just wrap up.
Okay, so this is good evening, my dear beautiful sisters of What Are You Saying? #Ways, Campus Tragedy, Revisiting Child Safety Policies. Your guest made mention of organizing an autopsy for the death of a child, which I agree. Take, for instance, the case of late Sylvester and late Winifred from Dowen schools and Chrisland schools, respectively. If there was proper care, those children would not have died at this tender age. Negligence has been the order of the day in our dear country, Nigeria, and it is so sad. My dear beautiful sister Uti made mention of adequate responsibility from the parents to the children, which is very important. My own take for now is that children are not well taken care of in their various schools, and it is so unfortunate. My dear beautiful sisters Uti and Dee, welcome back. I miss you. Daniel.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Taiwo Akilami, thank you. You called the community, it says what?
Info Bank.
Info Bank, right? So that's
Children Info Bank.
Children Info Bank. Please go out if you're a parent. Look out for that platform. We need to start to educate ourselves. Thank you so much, Taiwo Akilami. Thank you, Norma. Thank you, Uti. Thank you, Dee.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll definitely bring you back. We will continue to bother you. Now, in case you missed today's quote, here it is again. Every child is a story yet to be told. Let us ensure their stories are filled with safety, love, and opportunities. This was from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Ciao. This matter.